Okay, should we start?
Yeah, please start.
Just want to understand how many people here will need Hindi translation. If anybody who needs Hindi translation, please raise your hand.
We'll try and do it in any case, Ashlisha, please.
Okay, so we'll have a brief Hindi translation. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. As you know, we have a press conference today about one of India's biggest nutrition food fortification programs. And our press conference today is about the conflict of interest that exists in the formulation and implementation of this program. We are launching a report today that shows that there's conflict of interest and presents our arguments. So 2 to 3 things before we start. I'm Ashlesha. I'm going to be the moderator for the event today. The event is being organized by ASHA, and ASHA is a volunteer-led informal national network of citizens. It's completely volunteer-driven, and it stands for Holistic, Sustainable, and Socially Just Food and Farming System. And ASHA's other name is Asha Kisan Swaraj, so that means it stands for self-reliance in our food and farming. It stands for Atmanirbharta in our food and farming. So just want to reiterate that it's volunteer-led, it is non-funded, and it is citizen-led. So today our key speaker is Kavita Kuruganti. She is going to be presenting the report that we are launching today. She's a member of ASHA and she's a long-time social worker working on issues of agriculture and farming. We also have with us Dr. Veena Shatrugna. She's the ex-deputy director of the National Institute of Nutrition. So if you have any questions with a medical angle or related to nutrition, she will be able to answer those. I will hand it over to Kavita to present our report, and after that we will open it up for questions from all of you. But before I hand it over to you, Kavita, maybe Ishtiaq Bhai, Mr. Ishtiaq Ahmed is here. He's going to be helping us with Hindi translation. So could you just do a brief translation, Ishtiaq Bhai, of what I just said?
Sure. अश्लेषा इस पूरी सत्र का मॉडरेशन करेंगी और ये दरअसल आशा किसान स्वराज का मंच है जो एक स्वायत्त और वॉलंटियर लेड कोalition है संगठनों का और किसान संगठनों का और अन्य संस्थाओं का जो किसानों की आत्मनिर्भरता को लेकर के काम करता है। और आज हम बात करने जा रहे हैं, ये प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस दरअसल है तो अभी देश का सबसे बड़ा न्यूट्रिशन इम्प्रूव करने का कार्यक्रम चल रहा है, राइस फोर्टिफिकेशन का, यानी चावल के फोर्टिफिकेशन का। उसमें किस तरह से कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट है मौजूद, इस पे आज हम लोग एक रिपोर्ट जारी करने जा रहे हैं। उसी के बारे में बताने के लिए ये प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस है। धन्यवाद।
I'm Kavita Kuruganti. I'm also associated with ASHA, and I'll use just 7-8 slides to describe what this report is going to share with you in greater detail. And the link to the report is being shared here in the chat box. It will also be shared as email along with the press release. So this PowerPoint presentation, the full report, and the press release in English and Hindi, all three will be shared both as WhatsApp links in this chat box, as in this Zoom call itself as links, as well as over email. So this press conference is not about food fortification per se, other than giving you a bit of a context about it, but it is about who's behind India's policies related to large-scale food fortification, especially iron-fortified food that is being distributed in all food schemes. And we'd like to showcase what exactly is the conflict of interest here. The context is that the Indian government has announced a very ambitious, massive program of supplying iron fortified food, which you could say is near mandatory for the poor in this country, who depend mostly on public food schemes like the public distribution system, ration supplies, ICDS in the Anganwadis, the PMGKY, which ran during the COVID pandemic time, and the midday meal scheme, which is called Poshan now in schools. The poor in this country, as you know, depend a lot on their entitlements in the National Food Security Act of 2013, which come through these various schemes. And the government had said that by March 2024, all food that is supplied will be fortified by with iron, folic acid, and vitamin B12. Which is being rice being mixed with fortified rice kernels. And this is happening at a very large scale at this point of time. We have concerns with regard to the safety. I mean, there are questions about efficacy, of course. Is this the best way to deal with anemia? And there's no contention that anemia is an issue and it has to be tackled along with several other malnutrition related public health problems in India. But is fortification the best tool, and whether such large scale fortification is the way to go? And is it effective at all in tackling anemia? On the other hand, in a country like India, there are actually safety concerns. And the safety concerns are for many, many citizens who are contraindicated when it comes to iron fortified foods. And we are talking about those who carry blood disorders like thalassemia and sickle cell disorder. But we are also talking about others who suffer from infections like malaria and tuberculosis, as well as diabetics. Consuming iron fortified foods. And in India, the Food Safety and Standards Act actually has statutory regulations that exhibit and that mandate a warning related to iron fortified food that reflects the scientific understanding of how such iron fortified food is contraindicated for many citizens. So our law requires that every package of food fortified with iron shall carry a statement that says that people with thalassemia may undertake under medical supervision, and that sickle cell anemia persons are not advised to consume such foods at all. And about both these aspects, as well as many other issues that emerge from such large-scale food fortified with iron being supplied in public food schemes, we brought out fact-finding reports from Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh last year. And this has been a matter of public debate, as you, several of you know. I request Ashlesha to share the links of the earlier reports in the chat box for those of you who are not familiar with those reports. May I request Ishtiaq Bhai to please translate?
Sure. ये 2020 के बाद से भारत सरकार ने एक मेजर पुश शुरू किया है आयरन फोर्टिफाइड राइस को लेकर के, और ये इरादा है कि 2024 तक इसको मैंडेटरी कर दिया जाएगा कि जितने भी भारत के फूड सिक्योरिटी प्रोग्राम्स हैं, यानी खाद्य सुरक्षा के जितने कार्यक्रम हैं, उनमें 2024 तक ये आवश्यक होगा कि उसमें आयरन फोर्टिफाइड राइस ही बांटा जाए। ये हम जानते हैं कि भारत के ज़्यादातर गरीब लोग जो हैं वो पूरी तरह से सरकारी खाद्य सुरक्षा कार्यक्रमों पर निर्भर हैं। तो वैसे में ये सुनिश्चित हो जाएगा कि लगभग हर परिवार में फोर्टिफाइड राइस पहुंच जाएगा। लेकिन इसके साथ दो तरह की समस्याएं हैं। एक तो है कि इस पर विवाद है कि राइस फोर्टिफिकेशन सही मायने में एनीमिया या माल न्यूट्रिशन को काबू कर सकता है। और दूसरा सवाल है कि या दूसरा कंसर्न ये है कि इससे कई तरह के स्वास्थ्य संबंधी रिस्क्स इन्वॉल्व्ड हैं, है ना। जैसे मलेरिया है या ट्यूबरकुलोसिस के केस में फोर्टिफाइड फूड जो है वो नुकसानदेह होता है, खास करके आयरन फोर्टिफाइड फूड। इसी तरह से हीमोग्लोबिन की परेशानी दो तरह की होती है, थैलेसीमिया, सिकल सेल एनीमिया। इन दोनों हालात में फोर्टिफाइड आयरन फोर्टिफाइड फूड कोई भी नुकसानदेह हो सकती है, हानिकारक हो सकती है। इस बात को लगातार उठाया जा रहा है, लेकिन अभी तक इस पे कोई गंभीरता से इस पे कोई कार्रवाई नहीं की गई है। एफएसएसएआई ने अपने एक 2021 के एक रेगुलेशन में बहुत साफ तौर पे कहा है कि हर फोर्टिफाइड फूड के पैकेट पे ये साफ तौर पे लिखा जाए कि ये फोर्टिफाइड है। और इसमें ये थैलेसीमिया के पेशेंट्स और सिकल सेल एनीमिया के जो पेशेंट्स हैं उनको नहीं दिया जाए। इससे भी ये साबित होता है कि ये कंसर्न काफी हद तक सिर्फ हम लोगों की का कंसर्न नहीं है, बल्कि ये एक वैज्ञानिक परेशानी है। इसी तरह से हम लोगों ने झारखंड में और छत्तीसगढ़ में इसके पहले फैक्ट फाइंडिंग रिपोर्ट्स जारी की, और उसमें ये पाया गया कि कई तरह की समस्याएं जमीनी स्तर पे भी मौजूद हैं। इसलिए इस पे थोड़ी और चर्चा की ज़रूरत है। लेकिन आज की प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस दरअसल फूड फोर्टिफिकेशन पे नहीं है, बल्कि इसमें कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट जो जो शामिल है उस पे है।
You're on mute, Kavita.
This press conference is about an entity called Food Fortification Resource Center, FFRC, that is housed inside the FSSAI, and FSSAI is the statutory regulator for food safety in the country. On 5th of November, just to give you a small background, 2020, ASHA wrote to FSSAI expressing its concerns about mandatory fortification in India. On 19th November, we received a reply from FFRC from an email address called fortification@fssai.gov.in, and ASHA and 168 other civil society bodies, they wrote back in August 2021 to FFRC in a very sincere and serious fashion, taking them seriously, and wrote back several point by point responses to what they wrote to us. And in that letter, we ironically pointed out about conflict of interest and the need for independent studies, how they were citing studies of people who were involved in food fortification and so on. And only later, much later, we started looking at this FFRC, because they started coming into meetings that were being had with FSSAI senior officials. And we realized that even departments in the government were actually getting confused about what this FFRC was. And in RTI replies, they were referring to an FFRC cell within FSSAI. And this is an RTI reply from the Health Ministry saying that, look, matters on rice fortification are not being handled by us, but they are being looked at by FFRC cell in FSSAI. So it started receiving a certain status and designation as a FFRC cell in FSSAI. And that's when we started looking at what this FFRC is all about. Ishtiyaq bhai?
जी, 2020 के 5 नवंबर को आशा ने एक अपनी जो चिंताएं, अपने कंसर्न्स थे, वो FSSAI को भेजी, जो कि कंसर्निंग बॉडी है इसके लिए। और उसी के जवाब में 19 नवंबर को फूड फोर्टिफिकेशन रिसोर्स सेंटर नाम की एक बॉडी से एक जवाब आया, जो दरअसल एक ईमेल आईडी है fortification@fssai.gov.in। और इसके बाद फिर 2021 में 168 आशा और दूसरे सिग्नेटरीज ने कई सारे सवाल FFRC के यानी उसको चुनौती नहीं देते हुए, उस पर सवाल नहीं उठाते हुए कई सारे और चिंताएं अपनी जाहिर की। जबकि और इसमें यह भी लिखा गया कि कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट बहुत साफ तौर पे देखा जा रहा है और एक इंडिपेंडेंट जांच की जरूरत है, क्योंकि अगर FFRC FSSAI का पार्ट है तो फिर ये इंडिपेंडेंट कैसे है, तो और FSSAI फिर इंडिपेंडेंट कितना रह जाता है। इसलिए हम लोगों ने मांग की थी कि एक इंडिपेंडेंट जांच हो। और बाद में पता चला कि कई गवर्नमेंट एजेंसीज भी FFRC को ही इसमें लीड एजेंसी के तौर पे प्रमोट कर रही हैं, उनमें कंफ्यूजन भी है ना। और तो उन्होंने ये भी लिखा कि राइस फोर्टिफिकेशन से जुड़ा हुआ जो मुद्दा है वो FSSAI के FFRC सेल द्वारा ही देखा जाएगा। इसलिए उनसे ही हम लोग बात करें, यानी हेल्थ डिपार्टमेंट भी ऐसा कह रहा था। धन्यवाद।
तो ये FFRC क्या है? उनके लेटर में उन्होंने लिखा है कि, sorry, I have lapsed into Hindi. So what exactly is FFRC? In their own letter to Asha, they wrote that this is something that got created to provide support to the states and union territories and the industry, and that it was created to address concerns. And they listed on the website, you can find that they have several partners. That includes Tata Trust, GAIN, Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, PATH, Nutrition International, Food Fortification Initiative, Global Child Nutrition Foundation. These are the private partners that FFRC has. It's all listed on their website. It's in the public domain. And we've before that heard the CEO of FSSAI actually give a media bite saying that FSSAI has established FFRC to facilitate and support food businesses in their fortification efforts. So very clearly, these are the entities, and they are openly saying that they're here to support businesses and the industry. Yeah, Ishtiaq bhai.
दरअसल
बिल्कुल
FFRC दरअसल है क्या, इस पे अलग अलग जो सरकारी बॉडीज हैं और FSSAI के अपने वेबसाइट पे जो FFRC के पार्टनर्स हैं, उनमें कई प्राइवेट प्लेयर्स हैं, कई गवर्नमेंट और वर्ल्ड बैंक WFP जैसे इंटरनेशनल बॉडीज भी हैं। और FFRC दरअसल ये बताया जा रहा है कि ये FSSAI का वो अंग है जो फूड फोर्टिफिकेशन को सपोर्ट करने के लिए रिसोर्स सेंटर के तौर पे डेवलप किया गया है। तो जी, और
इंडस्ट्री को सपोर्ट करने के लिए और बिजनेसेस को सपोर्ट करने के लिए।
बिल्कुल।
तो बस let's spend 2 minutes looking at what exactly is conflict of interest. So it's about a particular entity, and here we're talking about a regulator, a statutory regulator called FSSAI. Its integrity, independence and impartiality potentially getting compromised due to interference of other interests. that's something that you can, theoretically or conceptually present as conflict of interest, and that other interest may be financial or may not be. It can be actual or perceived, and it can be either individuals or it could actually be institutional or organizational. And if we dip into WHO draft framework, and because this is an issue that is unfolding as a all-pervasive conflict of interest in other countries also, WHO is actually working on a framework that's acceptable to members across the globe. And this is meant specifically for safeguarding against conflicts of interest in nutrition programs. In that framework, outcome-based conflict of interest is also defined, where a vested interest can actually be causing interference that is inconsistent with demonstrable public interest. That also is being defined as conflict of interest. So please keep in mind that when we are looking at conflict of interest, we're talking about all these aspects, manifesting themselves. And FSSAI itself understands what conflict of interest is. In 2010, it tried to bring out draft guidelines, which were never finalized. In 2019, it brought out another set of draft guidelines called as working with the private sector. And it does talk about conflict representing a particular other interest that would influence a member's judgment, and those situations where members' impartiality may be compromised. And FSSAI talks about managing conflict of interest, whereas we responded at that time also with a long letter talking about avoidance of conflict of interest. Nobody's talking about not consulting with market players, private businesses, when policies are formulated. They are part of what happens in a country, in its economy and so on. But will they get to be that driving force which compromises the demonstrable public interest is something which we have to look into. So this is, sorry, Ishtiaq, right? Conflict of interest.
इसमें कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट इस तरह से है कि यहाँ पे एक एंटिटी की इंटेग्रिटी और उसकी जो स्वायत्तता है, इंडिपेंडेंस है, और उसकी इम्पार्शियलिटी जो है ना, वो किसी तरह से उसमें अगर कोई और बॉडी का इंटरफेरेंस हो और ये सारी चीज़ें कॉम्प्रोमाइज्ड हों, तो दूसरे तरह के इंटरेस्ट, मतलब वो दूसरे तरह के इंटरेस्ट का मतलब फाइनेंशियल भी हो सकता है या परसीव्ड या पोटेंशियल इंटरेस्ट भी हो सकता है। इसी तरह से WHO ने भी अपने फ्रेमवर्क में जिस पे पूरी दुनिया से वो सहमति लेने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, उन्होंने बहुत साफ तौर पे न्यूट्रिशन प्रोग्राम्स में पॉसिबल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट के बारे में काफ़ी अच्छे से स्पष्टता से ये लिखा है। इसी तरह से FSSAI भी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट से जानता है, वो भी जान रहे हैं कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट क्या है, और इस तरह की एक ड्राफ्ट उन्होंने ड्राफ्ट गाइडलाइन 2010 में भी सामने रखी थी, जो फाइनल नहीं हो पाया। 2019 में भी उन्होंने कहा कि वो प्राइवेट सेक्टर के साथ काम करेंगे, है ना, और लेकिन इसमें सिर्फ बात ये है कि इसमें कहीं जो उनका इंडिपेंडेंस है वो कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं हो, इस पे ध्यान देने की ज़रूरत रही है हमेशा से। और आशा ने तब भी इस पे सवाल किया था कि कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट को दूर करने की ज़रूरत है, मैनेज करने की बात नहीं है। मैनेज करना पर्याप्त नहीं है, बल्कि उससे बचने की ज़रूरत है।
Thank you. So this is the key graphic which captures the entire report. Kindly pay attention to it. So inside FSSAI is this FFRC, which lists PATH, Tata Trust, GAIN, Nutrition International, Global Child Nutrition Foundation, and FFI, Food Fortification Initiative, and some UN bodies like WFP and so on. And if you look at, what they themselves are revealing about who they are connected with, Tata Trust, in turn, works with Tata Chemicals, with something called Bella Nutralogicals, which is actually creating these fortification chemicals, the fortificants. If you look at something called GAIN, which is Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, they have floated some platforms called Sun Business Network, and more importantly, they actually have a premix facility where they have business proceeds by which they themselves are funded. So they are into actual fortification business. If you look at Nutrition International, it is actually claiming on its website that it has certain partners and it has certain donors who are actually industry bodies. And, several of you probably know about this. The largest micronutrient nutraceutical companies globally are companies like DSM, which is a Dutch company, ADM, which is again Dutch, Cargill, BASF, Lonza, Abbott, Adesio, and so on. And you find several of those entities which actually are, monopolizing, if you like, the space around all those chemicals that are used as fortificants, as synthetic micronutrients and so on, especially vitamins. Those companies are linked to these partners or FFRC. And they are these lobby groups of Nutrition International, GAIN, PATH, Tata Trust, and so on. The interesting feature is several of them are funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but they are clearly linked as per their own websites with various kinds of partnerships. In some cases, as donors, they have these business entities which are going to benefit from micronutrients being promoted through large-scale fortification.
जैसा इस डायग्राम में आप देख सकते हैं कि एफएफआरसी के कई पार्टनर्स हैं, जैसे पाथ है, टाटा ट्रस्ट, गेन, न्यूट्रिशन इंटरनेशनल, जीसीएनएफ और कई और इनके जो पार्टनर ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं या पार्टनर इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, उसमें कई ऐसे, कम से कम 6 ऐसे हैं जिनकी मोनोपोली है माइक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट प्रोडक्शन में। इसी तरह से हम ये देख सकते हैं कि बिल एंड मेलिंडा गेट फाउंडेशन की कई तरह की फंडिंग है, जो पैथ को भी है, टाटा ट्रस्ट को भी है, गेन को भी है, और ये सब लोग टाटा ग्रुप्स, टाटा केमिकल्स, टाटा बीवरेजेस जैसे, करगिल जैसे कई और बॉडीज से सीधे जुड़े हैं, और ग्लोबल प्रीमिक्स फैसिलिटी जैसे ग्रुप से भी ये सारी टाटा ट्रस्ट और गेन जैसे ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस जुड़े हुए हैं। तो वैसे में दिखता है कि ये सिर्फ पब्लिक गुड के लिए नहीं है, बल्कि इसमें फाइनेंशियल गेन का, फाइनेंशियल इंटरेस्ट का भी स्ट्रॉन्ग प्रेजेंस हो सकता है।
So all the pink circles that you see there are actually either producing nutraceuticals or they are marketing fortified products, and they are in turn linked to these bodies which are part of FFRC.
तो गुलाबी घेरे में जितने आप सर्कल्स देख रहे हैं, वो सभी या तो माइक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट्स बनाने वाले हैं या फोर्टिफिकेशन को प्रमोट करने वाले इंडस्ट्रीज हैं, इससे भी आपको काफी हद तक बातें समझ में आ सकती हैं।
फोर्टिफाइड प्रोडक्ट्स को बेचने वाले इंडस्ट्री से और थोड़ा इन जस्ट नटशेल टेबल which shows that Tata Trusts are linked to Tata Group, which is into fortified products. Vella Nutralogicals, which is creating these fortificants. Similarly, Gain is from the premix facility that it runs. It purchases and sells, and it also certifies others. It's linked to many businesses, which are in turn making their revenues out of fortified products. Path actually holds a proprietary technology along with Abbott, and is also linked to Mott MacDonald. Nutrition International is linked to DSM and Tech Resources. FFI to BASF, DSM Cargill, and GCNF with Cargill DSM. These foundations, 3-4 of them are US based. One of them is a Canadian entity. And they clearly have their associated corporate partners. And the Gates Foundation, sorry, Ishtiyaq bhai, I'm sorry. I'll just go back to the here.
तो इसमें जो हमने डायग्राम में देखा है उसी को और बेहतर ढंग से दिखाया गया है, और इसमें कई ये फाउंडेशंस हैं तो जरूर, लेकिन इनके बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग रिलेशनशिप्स हैं कई ऐसी कंपनीज से जो या तो माइक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट बनाते हैं या फोर्टिफाइड फूड की मार्केटिंग करते हैं, बेचते हैं मतलब। तो जैसे पाथ के बारे में बहुत साफ जानकारी है कि इनके पास अल्ट्रा राइस की प्रोप्राइटरी टेक्नोलॉजी इन्होंने तैयार की है, जो कि राइस फोर्टिफिकेशन टेक्नोलॉजी है बेसिकली, और इसको भारत में अभी प्रमोट किया जा रहा है। इसी तरह से आप बाकी सब के भी देख सकते हैं कि कुछ बीएसएफ से कनेक्टेड हैं और कुछ करगिल डीएसएम जैसे माइक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट बनाने वाली कंपनियों से सीधे जुड़े हुए हैं।
So the Gates Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, supports by funding many of these entities. And BMGF was behind launching a lobby group like GAIN initially. And FFRC itself was launched in the presence of Bill Gates. And there's, other articles which have already highlighted about agencies like GAIN. So that's about BMGF and FFRC. And what have they been up to so far? They themselves, these lobby groups themselves, are claiming what they have achieved so far in the space related to food fortification. Tata Trust, through the India Nutrition Initiative, TINI, is the one which helped set up the FFRC. GAIN is saying that it has been able to include fortified edible oil in social protection schemes, and that they have successfully played a role there. And they even talk about, influencing India's standards and legislations. Path is talking about creating standards along with FSSAI. They also implement pilots, and importantly, they also evaluate those pilots. They are both implementing partners. Other than actually creating the rules of the game, they also implement and evaluate what's happening with fortification interventions. They sell equipment and nutraceuticals. They also produce and sell premixes. This is what they are collectively doing at this point of time. इश्तियाक भाई।
जी, पीएमजीएफ इस पूरे कार्यक्रम में काफी महत्वपूर्ण रोल प्ले कर रहा है। कई लोगों को फंडिंग के अलावा जब एफएफआरसी लॉन्च हो रहा था तो उस समय भी बिल गेट्स मौजूद थे, यानी बीएमजीएफ की सीधी सीधी भागीदारी थी। गेन को उन्होंने 128 करोड़ रुपए दिए, इसी तरह से पात को लगभग 40 करोड़ रुपए दिए, 11 इसी तरह से बहुत सारे मनी उनका इसमें इन्वॉल्व्ड है। और नेक्स्ट स्लाइड पे प्लीज। हाँ, तो ये लोग लॉबिंग भी कर रहे हैं और इस पूरे कार्यक्रम के लिए स्टैंडर्ड्स भी तैयार कर रहे हैं और इसका दावा भी कर रहे हैं कि उन्होंने किस तरह से भारत में फोर्टिफाइड एडिबल ऑयल को प्रमोट किया है या नेशनल सोशल प्रोटेक्शन प्लान में उसको शामिल कराया है, या फिर किस तरह से वो यहाँ के लेजिस्लेशन यानी कानून निर्माण की प्रक्रिया को इन्फ्लुएंस कर रहे हैं इसके सपोर्ट में, यानी फोर्टिफाइड फूड के सपोर्ट में। और पाथ ने ये दावा किया है कि एफएसएसएआई के साथ मिलकर के वो स्टेपल फूड के फोर्टिफिकेशन के स्टैंडर्ड्स बना रहे हैं वो मिलकर के उनके साथ। तो और यही लोग इम्प्लीमेंटेशन पार्टनर्स भी हैं कई जगह पे और वही उसको एवेलुएट भी कर रहे हैं, यानी वही स्टैंडर्ड्स बना रहे हैं, वही इम्प्लीमेंट कर रहे हैं, वही इवेलुएट भी कर रहे हैं। तो ये अपने आप में एक तरह का बहुत ही अजीब सा फॉर्मुलेशन लगता है। इसी तरह से दूसरे जो बॉडीज हैं वो भी सीधे सीधे प्रीमेक्सिस या न्यूट्रास्यूटिकल्स बनाने वाली कंपनियों के साथ सीधा सीधा उनका संबंध है।
So I'll end this, the last slide. I'm sorry we've taken so long. There's conflict of interest, which is actual financial conflict of interest, other than perceived, other than outcome-based conflict of interest and so on. It's clearly a case of FFRC reflecting objectionable conflict of interest. The second part to it is that even with the scientific debate around fortification, is it effective, is it safe? You cannot have a one-sided portrayal, that too from a regulatory body. That's the other issue that we want to highlight. All these entities are clearly, sitting there with only one outlook towards fortification, which is a excessively positive outlook. And lastly, these are divergent mandates. FSSAI is a statutory regulatory body, and FFRC is a private industry supported, led, conflict of interest led and promotional body. So we ask for FFRC to be removed from FSSAI, and we demand that FSSAI has to purge itself of conflict of interest in this sphere, as well as, we're not getting into other areas where other people have highlighted how our regulatory body is being driven by private industry. So I'll end with that, Ishtiaq bhai.
इसमें तीन महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दे हैं। पहला ये कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट, जिस पे हम लोगों ने भी काफी बातचीत की है। दूसरा हिस्सा ये है कि इसमें एक तरफा तस्वीर फोर्टिफिकेशन की दिखाई गई है, जबकि रेगुलेटरी बॉडी के लिए दोनों पक्ष, वैज्ञानिक पहलू दोनों तरफ के सामने रखना जरूरी है। इसमें सिर्फ पॉजिटिव साइड जो है उसका वही बताया गया है। तीसरा है कि एफएसएसएआई एक रेगुलेटरी बॉडी है ना, और एफएफआरसी एक प्रमोशनल बॉडी, एक ऐसी बॉडी जो कई तरह के इंटरेस्ट ड्रिवन प्राइवेट कंपनीज से सीधे सीधे जुड़ी हुई है, उनके प्रमोशन के लिए काम करती है। तो हमारी ये मांग है कि एफएसएसएआई से एफएफआरसी को अलग किया जाए, और एफएसएसएआई से ये भी एक्सपेक्टेशन है या हमारी डिमांड ये है कि वो सभी तरह के कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट से अपने आप को मुक्त करें।
Thank you. So our report actually has about 165 references. Everything that we have said is something that we picked up from several of these players' websites, and what they are themselves revealing. You can look at their, in the case of some agencies, they have revealed their donors, donation amounts and stuff like that, not all of them. So this is all material that is there in the public domain that we have brought together as one report. I'll stop there. We're ready to take any questions, I think. Ashlesha, did you want to add anything that I might have missed
Kavita,
out?
you covered it all. So let's open it up for questions.
If there are any questions, can you please go ahead, ask them? Are people able to unmute themselves?
Kavita garu, Purmanath here from Business Line, Hyderabad.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah. See, what has been the response of the state governments? So, see, PDS is coming, FCI is, all the state government, state governments from where it is procuring, that all the rice, for example, in Telangana, it has mandated that all rice that it will procure from Telangana should be fortified. So it is already coming. So what kind of response the states have on it? Because they are the, as you are saying in the report, they are the main stakeholders.
Yeah, so in Jharkhand, we found that the food supplies minister, who's also the health minister, he actually expressed his helplessness with being able to do anything about this, because Jharkhand depends a lot on FCI supplies. And it does look like there's some coercion from the center, more or less forcing state governments to accept this fortification agenda that's being thrust from top. Kerala has at least 2-3 times in national meetings raised concerns. It has actually raised concerns in national meetings and also announced at the state level that they will supply for certain contraindicated patients non-fortified rice supplies. But they have not operationalized anything of that sort, despite maybe they've announced it some 8 months ago. Operationalization is going to be challenging, because in India, the PDS system operates with household as a unit. One household is considered as the entitled unit, whereas the contraindicated patients can be single individuals inside a family. So it's going to be challenging. State governments are concerned. We heard very senior officials express their concern to us. Once again, off the record, we don't know whether they've written to the center in Chhattisgarh. Chhattisgarh actually has to be concerned, because the state has devised extra entitlements to each household, which is additional to what other states give. And they are also being forced to supply only fortified rice. So we know that they are concerned. We don't know whether they've done anything yet about it. And meanwhile, the center is just washing its hands of the responsibility by sending advisories, telling state governments that they have to make sure that the label caution is followed. How does one operationalize it on the ground when everything is fortified is not clear. But this
Yeah,
conflict of interest, sorry, Gurminath, go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
it's very strange. It's very strange because no, it's like carpet bombing. Doctors generally prescribe vitamins and other supplements based on the requirement. I don't know whether I'm lacking in B12 or folic acid. No, that all depends on person to person. So you can't just simply bombard people with so many vitamins. You don't know how each person can absorb it and know how much of it they can take actually, how much of it they require in a month. Simply they don't have any calculation, it seems. Very kind of counterproductive on that front as well.
So Kurmanadgar, we will later on get into the technical aspects, the scientific aspects related to fortification, because Dr. Veena Shetrughna, who's retired as the Deputy Director of National Institute of Nutrition,
I know.
is with us.
Yeah,
I'm sure you do. And we could draw her in as soon as we wrap up this conflict of interest part. Yeah. Does anyone else have anything? Sanjeev ji, please go ahead.
So, Kavita, what you are basically saying is that this FFRC is housed in FSSAI, and FFRC is an industry body which has been roped in by the government to promote fortified foods, right? And this FFRC has a conflict of interest because it has members who do produce or do promote or do themselves use fortified foods, right?
Yes. And that they have no business sitting in a statutory regulatory body. This is completely unacceptable. That, letters being sent to a statutory regulatory body or even an elected government's executive and its officials, they're being directed. They're just telling us, that they are the cell which will respond to you.
So you have some RTI responses which show that FFRC is actually there in FSSAI, right?
Yeah, FFRC website, if you just search right now online, you will find that it is inside FSSAI. The website address itself is ffrc.fssai.gov.in.
Okay.
And they are physically housed, they are virtually housed, and government departments are directing us to FFRC. Our letters are being responded to by FFRC. That's the first slide that I shared, that our very first letter was responded to by FFRC.
Okay. So when was this FFRC formed?
2018.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So Sanjeev, you're right. What you said just then in succinctly is what the story is, that they have no business being there and they should be removed from FSSAI to begin with. And in any case, I think the debate about fortification, the science and technology of fortification, and about, more importantly, about nutrition, the debate is not even about fortification. It's about, we do have a malnutrition problem in this country. What's the best way of solving it? It has to be opened up properly, not allow one set of players to hijack the whole thing.
Okay.
Thanks, Sanjeev.
Thanks.
Mudhur, I see you unmuted. Is it because you wanted to ask something, or you're on two devices actually? Mudhur, is there something that you wanted to say? Okay. Anyone else who wanted to raise anything here?
I think in Kerala, there was a resistance in the beginning, but later on, there was a pressure from the center that if they are not going with fortified rice, they won't be able to get subsidies. So in the initial stage, it was implemented in Wayanad, later on in midday meal. I think now they have started distributing in the public distribution system as well, I think. I don't think that Kerala won't be raising any resistance against this as from the state level.
I think it is difficult for all those states which are depending on one, the center providing the food subsidy bill, but also which are heavily dependent on external food supplies outside the state. It is going to be difficult. And the center has made up its mind. As you know, the story is about evaluations not having been completed. There are many issues, but they are rushing into scaling up. They announced that by March 2024, everything will be iron fortified.
But I think that we as when we communicate with people, they'll be more interested to know how it is going to affect the health and the risk part of it, because the economic interest, how the companies and industries are involved. I don't know, maybe.
Shibu, this is a press conference. This is not a internal.
Yeah.
This press conference is highlighting something which has to add to the public debate about so-called beneficiaries. They're actually entitled citizens. What would their primary concern be from the ground when they receive such food? You're right about what you're saying, but this press conference is about what is happening with FFRC.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who has anything to say? Otherwise, I don't think we have everybody's contacts here. I know that some people who joined here, 2-3 of you are from the Right to Food campaign and from civil society groups, but may I request others, Sabita Gupta Tiwari ji, Suchitra, Maushmi, Supriya. I'm not sure that I have your contacts. Do you mind sharing them in the chat box, please? For
I'm
us to
also-
share the...
I'm also posting the link to the press release, and that the press release has the link to the report and everything. We'll also be sending it by email.
Okay. So if there's nothing else, we'll close this PC now. Want to thank you all for joining. We'll be sharing all the material. Thank you all. Ishtiaq Bhai, thank you so much. Dr. Veena, did you want to, sorry, Dr. Veena, did you want to add anything, especially with regard to the...
No, I think you've covered all the points, and that's important here, because the technicalities of treatment of anemia, side effects, all those don't come within the purview of this conflict of interest. Yeah. Thanks, Kavita.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all then. We'll close this press conference.